Star Wars 7x7 episode 2009. Today we're continuing our look at the Star Wars stories being told in 2020 and briefly looking back at 2019 as well. Today we're going to be talking about animation. Punch it! Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. So, we're a little bit behind on Star Wars Resistance. Resistance Season 2 is ongoing, and in 2019 it was announced that Season 2 would be the last season of Star Wars Resistance. More's the pity because it certainly has been ramping up and getting even more exciting with Season 2. Unfortunately. And we are a little bit behind in our Resistance briefings here as well, but we will be getting back to that very soon. And it turns out that they are not stopping at all. We've talked previously on the show about how usually with other, animated series and even season 1 of Resistance, that there's a, mid-season break that happens, a fall finale or a winter finale, if you will. And that didn't happen for Resistance, so it went all the way through with 5 episodes in December, and I thought there was a possibility that they would take a couple weeks off in January, but no, they are cruising and will still be releasing episodes weekly throughout the month of January, so that was rather surprising. There is a double episode scheduled for the last Sunday in January. I haven't seen a report saying that that's going to be the final episode of Resistance, but any sort of two-parter situation tends to be a flag saying, hey, pay attention because this might be the end of it all. So we will have to be checking for more information, which naturally, of course, will happen as we get to Resistance briefings on the show here. But yeah, that does look like they are starting to wind down. And if that is accurate, then I think we're looking at 18 episodes for this particular season, unless they are continuing on into February. But 18 would be a pretty solid number. And then there's the Clone Wars. So through an amazing and persistent and concerted effort by fans to get Lucasfilm to continue the Clone Wars series, they agreed, they got it into production, and it is coming in February of 2020, Clone Wars Season 7. Now, it had run for 5 seasons on Cartoon Network and then was canceled, but there were episodes in production which became the Lost Missions, as they were called, and were released to Netflix exclusively in the US. There were 13 episodes in that final 6th season. And there have been other media elements that have been released over time, like the novel Dark Disciple, for example, was based on 8 episodes of the Clone Wars that were potentially supposed to happen. There have been, a few other things as well, like a Darth Maul comic and story reels and other stuff like that. So, there have been other Clone Wars stories told since the end of the series. There have also been some storylines that have been discussed in various panels at Star Wars Celebrations past, which are going to make up the content of Clone Wars Season 7. From what we understand of it now, there are going to be 12 episodes, and based on the way that they were doing them previously, it looks like we're going to get 3 4-episode arcs out of the series, which is going to include the Siege of Mandalore, which is a scene that has been talked about at length, or a series, a story arc that's been talked about at length by Dave Filoni, and also has appeared, or at least been referenced in other media, including the Ahsoka novel. But here's the thing. Once Season 7 of the Clone Wars is over, and once Star Wars Resistance is over, we're not going to have any Star Wars animation. And for the last few years, there has been some sort of Star Wars animated series happening. So what does that mean for fall of 2020? Well, let's talk about that after the break. Stay tuned. Hey Rebel Rouser, I've made some changes to the asteroid belt level at patreon.com/SW7x7, and they are all with sponsors in mind. So if you want to get the word out about your business, your product, your service to a dedicated Star Wars audience, then please check out patreon.com/SW7x7 and look for the asteroid belt level for details. Again, that's patreon.com/SW7x7. Welcome back. So Dave Filoni has been involved with the production of The Mandalorian, which does make you wonder what kind of time he has to dedicate to animated stuff, since of course he was involved in the Clone Wars series, including Season 7 that's coming. So apparently he's had time to work on both to some degree. It makes you wonder whether he's going to be able to contribute to Mandalorian Season 2 and any sort of new animation effort that may be coming along. He was listed as part of the creative situation behind Star Wars Resistance, but really I think the episode-to-episode stuff goes to Athena Portillo and Justin Ridge and Brandon Allman, who are running Star Wars Resistance right now. That could mean, of course, that with some collaboration by Dave Filoni, or maybe not even, there may be an animated series in the future for Disney Plus for Star Wars. What that would be, of course, is the big question. Where would it take place in the timeline? There is, of course, one large gaping hole, as it were, and a thing that Star Wars fans, and particularly Star Wars animation fans, would be very interested in seeing, and that is a resolution to what happened at the end of Star Wars Rebels. Particularly with Ezra disappearing off into heaven knows where with Grand Admiral Thrawn, and with Ahsoka Tano and Sabine Wren going off to search for them. And the search happens, or like when they decide to finally go search for him, it happens years after Ezra and Thrawn have disappeared, with apparently no word as to where they might have gone or where they might have popped up since that disappearing act at the end of Star Wars Rebels, but before that epilogue situation. So I feel like that's a prime situation to pursue in Star Wars animation, and that fans of the animated series would be gaga over that situation. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's where they're going to go with it, but certainly one very popular potential possibility. But I do think that we are going to see an animated series in the fall of 2020, and we'll probably learn more about that at Celebration Anaheim as well. So there you go. That is going to do it for our look at the animation scene for 2020 for Star Wars, and that's going to do it for this episode of the show as well. Thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
Star Wars 7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2020 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.